George Takei, who was in Star Trek, and for some reason we need to listen to his views on politics. George Takei just brought up the murder of Laken Riley, who I haven't even really covered this story. It's just so terribly sad. It's a University of Georgia student, young gal, who was allegedly murdered by an illegal alien when she was out on a run. George Takei is very upset by this. Not that an illegal alien who had no business being in this country murdered a young American girl. Not that Joe Biden and the Democrats have invited these illegal aliens by the millions into the country so that they have blood on their hands. They are responsible for these murders and all the other crimes associated with it. We'll get to some of the other crimes in just a moment. George Takei is not upset about any of that. George Takei is worried that if we keep even talking about all the crimes the illegal aliens are committing and the murders they're committing, the blowback on innocent illegal aliens could just be so terrible. Norm Macdonald had a bit on this, the late, great Norm Macdonald. He said, my biggest fear is that someday a Muslim terrorist will smuggle in a dirty bomb into a major American city, killing tens of millions of people. Because then the blowback on peaceful Muslims would be terrible. and his guest didn't know how to respond. He said, yeah, exactly. Right. Okay. George Takei is now doing that bit. He's now embodying that bit. He says, quote, I know your type of politician. He's speaking to the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. Men like you smeared my community, I guess George Takei is Japanese, during World War II by preying upon people's fears of others who didn't look like them. It led to the internment and 125,000 shattered lives. Never again. Okay, this one's going to get me in trouble. I just have to. There were a lot of Japanese spies in America during World War II. Okay, there were a lot of Japanese spies. You don't need to take my word for it. I'm not saying I'm justifying any of the Franklin Roosevelt policies. I'm not a big fan of Franklin Roosevelt, but there were a lot of Japanese spies in America. Actually, this is from the CIA. This was declassified by the CIA. We see this in Washington Times, May 1983. A substantial number of Japanese Americans living on the West Coast during World War II were spies for the Japanese government, according to secret Japanese diplomatic codes of the period. So the United States government received Japanese diplomatic codes and interpreted them and discovered that the Japanese had a lot of spies in the United States. The Japanese Foreign Ministry's own cables appear to contradict findings of a federal commission, which reported February 24th that there was no military reason for confining some 117,000 Japanese Americans to isolated camps from 1942 to 1945. So the U.S. government apologized for this, and Roosevelt had a lot to apologize for. But the irony, the historic irony here is that the Japanese actually admitted that they had a lot of spies in the United States. And this ties into the very story that George Takei is talking about, because this is one of the big threats posed by mass migration, by unvetted large-scale migration. This is what's going on right now. Right now, go to GDefy.com, promo code MK30. Good footwear is about more than fashion. What you wear on your feet matters for your health, your comfort, your well-being. Choosing footwear that provides support for your daily routine is very important, and now it's easier than ever thanks to GDefy shoes. GDefy shoes are anything but ordinary. While others have clung to shoes featuring a run-of-the-mill memory foam sole, GDefy offers a patented sole construction meticulously designed to bring the pep back to your step. They're really fantastic. They feel magnificent, and they look really, really good. I love that they've got all sorts of styles. They have a nice black Oxford shoe with broguing, which I prefer. They also have the one without broguing. I just ordered a nice pair of penny loafers from them. They have running shoes, the only running shoes I'll even consider wearing. Your feet deserve more than just another pair of shoes. Right now, use code MK30 for $30 off orders of $150 or more at GDefy.com. That is GDefy.com, promo code MK30 for $30 off your purchase of $150 or more. Experience the miracle that is GDefy, where comfort meets innovation. Do you know last year, we're no longer all that worried about going to war with Japan. We are worried about going to war with China. We're worried about going to war with China over Taiwan, over the South China Sea, because China's a rising power. And 3/4 of the time in recent history, when rising powers challenge dominant powers, major conflict ensues. Well, last year, U.S. Border Patrol and Customs reported 37,000 Chinese citizens apprehended crossing illegally from Mexico into the United States. That's a lot of people. And you might say, oh, that's kind of strange, because I don't think China How does geography, we don't learn a lot about geography in America, but is it America, Mexico, China, Guatemala? I kind of forget where all the countries are. No, China's on the other side of the Pacific Ocean. So how did they get there? They're flying in through the southern route to our neighbors, then crossing illegally. That 37,000 number is pretty large. That is more than 50 times what we saw just 2 years earlier. Why is there a 50-fold increase in Chinese illegal immigration into the United States across our southern border? Is that at all troubling? That's a little bit troubling to me. If we had good vetting, if we had a reasonable migration policy and we had a process of assimilation, you wouldn't worry about these things. The government wouldn't have worried about these things in the 1940s. Japan would not have sent spies to America in the 1940s. China would not be a big worry right now, but that is what is happening. The big fear. Also, what do you think is going to happen? We're not even talking about, in the case of the Japanese, we're talking about legal immigrants. In the case of these illegal aliens from America, they already should be interned in jails and then sent back to their countries, deported. That just according to the law that already exists on the books. Totally incomparable stuff. But when we don't know about history, we just repeat it, or we come very close to repeating it. Now, speaking of protecting young people, I mentioned one of the biggest problems with the southern border right now. It's not even just the people coming across. It's not even just the social chaos that causes and the economic problems that causes. It's the fentanyl. It's the drugs. And this involves our southern border and it involves China. Fentanyl is a drug that kills kids, often who are experimenting with drugs, period, for the first time. Between July of 2019 and December of 2021, according to the CDC, 86% of adolescents who died of a fentanyl overdose had never previously experienced a drug overdose. There's a really, really good report on this in the Free Press. That's Barry Weiss's outlet. This is by James Fishback. Highly recommend you check out the whole thing. Last year, the DEA seized more than 77 million fentanyl pills. That is the most in a single year. One of these pills can kill you. One of these pills could probably kill 2 people or more. This is killing 200 Americans per day. This is totally gut-wrenching, and it's not as though we don't know where it's coming from. We know exactly where it's coming from. The materials that are used to make these fentanyl pills come from China. Coincidentally, they come from Wuhan and around Wuhan. They come from China. The Chinese ship them in to Mexico. Then they cross by the cartels. The cartels create the drugs. They ship them into the United States across the open border, the border that the Biden administration is intentionally opening. When Texas creates its own border wall because the federal government won't do its job, Joe Biden sends his thugs to take the border wall down, to bring this stuff into the country. The people who are dying, the 200 Americans, forget about the Americans even who are being murdered by the illegal aliens, the 200 Americans who are dying every day from these fentanyl overdoses, that blood is on Joe Biden's hands. He is doing this intentionally. It's not that he hasn't had warning. It's not that he doesn't know what's going on. Even Joe Biden, who doesn't know what end is up, he knows exactly what's going on in this issue. And the Democrats have made a very cynical play to keep that border open because they think it will help them politically. And if the cost is 200 American kids dying every day, well, so be it. That's just the cost. Man, that was a good clip, huh? Now, hold up. Ring the bell. Subscribe to the Michael Knowles YouTube channel. We'll see you next time.